This is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top questions and struggles. I share what to eat, how to move, and how to think to get the energy and the vitality you want in the second and better half. And this episode is all about getting off that diet you're on or thinking about trying next. Yeah, I know you're out there. But first, I need to let you know this episode is sponsored by Stronger One, the 8-week early fall strength training program created for women in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, launching right now. The doors are not only open, but if you're listening to this before July 25th, you can get in at 50% off during the early bird special. So more details on that, and I'll put the link in the show notes. So I've got a question. Are you truly on a diet? Have you been on a diet? And I think all of America just raised its hand. Here's the question. Can you end dieting hell once and for all? And my guest today, Michelle Melendez, is the creator of the Live in a Body You Love 90-day program and Hawaii retreat. And so I'm all ears about that. And author of End Dieting Hell, How to Find Peace with Your Body and Lose Weight. She's led thousands of live and online fitness classes and has helped women around the world understand and release their emotional addiction to being overweight. Michelle, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Deborah. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's such a great book title. I love it because it just like splats it out there and everybody knows that's exactly what that feels like. Dieting hell.
Yes, absolutely. It's so painful to keep doing something over and over again and get small success just to have everything go out the window, in a year or less. And that's why it's just hell. And people do it every single year over and over again.
And okay, so as I introduced you, of course, I had a little coaching from you. What's the best way to describe you? But I want to unpack this strong statement at the very tail end of your introduction. Emotional addiction to being overweight. Talk about that. So it suggests that a listener could be addicted to the very thing that they're constantly seeking a diet in order to end.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's how it works. So let me just explain how I found this information. I became a weight loss specialist in 2009. And after a couple of years of noticing that the clients I would help to release inches and release weight, a year later, they would gain it back and sometimes more. And I was like, okay, what is up with that? And I didn't feel like I knew that there was something that I was missing because I helped them release the weight. That's what they wanted. I know that being overweight was frustrating for them. So why would they gain it back again? So I really went on a mission to find out why. And I studied human behavior, and then it went into neuroscience, and then it went into emotional addiction. And what I found blew my mind. And it was this, that the 50 to 70 trillion cells of your body actually become conditioned to the feelings that you have every day. And that feels normal to you. And it turns into what is your ego. And then you think that's who you are. So you think you're somebody who struggles with their weight. And I actually, in one of my retreats, I actually was telling, the participants that you're not somebody who struggles with your weight. And I had a participant get really angry with me. And she was like, Michelle, I've been struggling with my weight all my life. What are you talking about? I'm somebody who struggles with my weight. I said, no. I said, you're actually someone who has memorized the behaviors and the thoughts and the actions of someone who struggles with their weight. But that's actually not who you are. It's just an emotional conditioning in the body that feels normal. And that is why you sabotage whatever diet or exercise program you go on, because liking your body and feeling good about yourself doesn't feel normal to you. And there's actually a lot more, but I'll stop right there. So what do you think about that, Deborah?
Oh my gosh, I think it's mind blowing. And I think it just also like released a bunch of balloons into the air. Like there's hope.
Yeah.
Like this is just me masquerading in some costume and I could take it off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing around this is that you have to understand that the body actually becomes conditioned to the actions you do every day. So let me give you an example. Like driving a car, you have to think about driving a car first, but after you learn, you don't drive the car anymore. Your subconscious and your body drives the car. You could be, texting, putting on your makeup, whatever. Your conscious mind isn't driving the car anymore. That's the same way with the body, with whatever behaviors you have. Like, for instance, I had a client who would come home after he was done working, and he would go straight to the fridge and make himself a big plate of nachos, then sit down in front of the television in the same spot on the sofa, watch TV, then have dinner. And so he was very overweight. And here's the thing, his body would actually go to the fridge because he got off work, he's tired. He's tired. He's done with his day. He just wants some comfort and to rest. So the body goes into just rerun mode, and it started to run his evening without him having a conscious thought about him. He could actually make nachos without even thinking about it, because his body was doing it. His cells were doing it. This is what I do. So the cells actually the body becomes conditioned to the behaviors you do, especially when you're tired, overwhelmed, or stressed or fatigued. The body just runs the show without you even thinking about it. And all of a sudden you just ate a huge thing of nachos and you don't even remember going to the kitchen. And so this is stuff that if you don't realize is happening, that this will take you completely sabotage any single weight loss goal you have. If any success you've had with weight, you're going to sabotage yourself unless you start to realize your emotional addictions first. It's really important to know what emotional addictions, what behaviors are you addicted to? And I say addicted because you do it without even thinking about it. It just happens. It's like a smoker is like smoking a cigarette, and all of a sudden they pop in their cigarette in their mouth and don't even realize they did it. It's just so normal. It feels normal for you to struggle with your weight.
Wow. This brings me to a good friend of mine, and I'm sure you know her too, Dr. Joan Rosenberg. She has said, in conversations we've had kind of circling this topic, that we get really comfortable thinking about ourselves in a certain way.
Absolutely.
We're just stuck. Okay. So I've got to know, because so many of us, we end up being an expert in something because we kind of got in there and wallowed too. Did you struggle with your weight?
No, but I struggled with body image. In my teens, I actually found out I had scoliosis, and that's where your spine is slightly curved, or could be very curved, and you need a back brace. I didn't need one. Mine was slightly curved, but it actually affected my chest. And I was in puberty, and so my breast was starting to come in, and one was larger than the other, and I was mortified. And so this actually became an emotional conditioning of insecurity, of constantly worrying and thinking that everybody could notice. And if guys were checking me out, I thought they could notice. And it affected me all the way up until my 30s. And even though I became a fitness trainer in 1996. And but this insecurity feeling was still very prevalent in my life until I went to I did a program around body image, and I started to do some different practices around and different ways to think about my body, and then that started to shift things for me. But when I learned this information about emotional conditioning, I thought back about where I was with my own insecurity self and insecurities about my body, and I realized that became an emotional conditioning and how I was running my life and the choices I was making from that insecurity. And so this happens with everybody, whatever emotion that you feel on a daily basis, you become emotionally conditioned to that, and you think that's who you are, but that's not who you are. And how you know it's not who you are, because you can shift it. You don't have to feel those feelings. It's like you feel like you do, but you can actually shift them, and it does take practice. So that's why I call everything that I do practices, because it's a practice to start to shift a new emotion that you're having with your body. It's a practice to think differently. And you really, the very first time you do it, it takes some effort. It does take some effort. It's like smoking, or alcoholism. You have to, that first part, that first initial month is the most challenging. And here's the biggest challenge around this is because you think that is who you are, but it's not who you are. And that's what I want to just really tell your listeners. You don't have to be somebody who struggles with their weight. You can actually be actually in the body that you're in right now and feel really, really good. And there's actually practices to get you there. And then what'll happen when you're feeling really good, you're actually going to start making choices that lead to more of you feeling good. And that will start to release the weight.
Awesome. And great environment. I always think to get into those newer practices, kind of learning newer patterns and ways of thinking, is to change your environment. So now we all have an excuse to come to Hawaii.
Absolutely. Yes. There's a retreat that I run here. It's a 7-day retreat, and it's, you get out of your environment and you come to the healing energy of the Big Island. And we do an amazing transformational retreat with dolphin swimming, manta ray snorkeling, volcano hike. And there's still space available in that. So definitely check that out.
And just so you know, I mean, neither one of us has like a yoga tape playing in the background. This is the ambiance Michelle's in right now. So
you're hearing the birds? Yes. These are the amazing birds that I have every single morning. I love it. I meditate to them every day. And that's definitely one thing that you'll have when you come to visit me.
So fantastic. All right. So here's the mind-blowing question of the day. How do you really do this? How do you end dieting hell?
I love it. The very first thing to do is to have compassion for yourself, because you've had a self-critic in your brain for many, many years, probably most of your life if you've been struggling with your weight. And the very first thing you want to do is to have compassion for all the different ages of yourself. And then the other thing to do is you want to find the emotional addiction, like if it's frustrated, you can't lose weight, anger, anxiety, whatever it is, what is the feeling that you mostly have? And then ask yourself, what's the emotional age of this feeling? Because it's not your current age. It wasn't created at your current age. It may feel like, oh, this is my current age. No, it's not. If you've been feeling that way for a really long time, what's the age? When was the first time you felt that feeling? And I can almost guarantee that sometime when you were really, really young. And so what you want to do is you want to think back, okay, what age is this? One of my clients, hers is 5 years old. And because let me just give you an example. We were started to talk about her food, and she got really mad at me. And she was just like, I can't help what I eat. This is just the way that it is. And it sounded like she just crossed her arms and stomped her feet. And I listened. And then I asked her, I said, what's the emotional age of that feeling? And she just paused and she just reconnected with me. And then she said, I think it's 5 years old. And I said, what was happening when you were 5? And she said that her parents would always be arguing at the dinner table. Anytime they ate, their parents would always be arguing. And she always felt made wrong for what she ate, what she was doing. She had a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. And so she ate to feel up the anxiety and fear and try to comfort herself. So we actually were able to explore that. And the very first thing you do is you have compassion for that younger part of you that experienced that. That was a child who just wanted to feel safe, to be taken care of, to know she was okay, and to be loved. And she didn't get that. So the very first thing you do is have compassion for that younger part of you, and then fully accept what happened. Don't make it wrong. So a lot of times our past, we look back and we get angry and, we blame either ourselves or other people. If they didn't do that to me, I wouldn't be like this. But you want to look back at your experiences in full acceptance, because when you do that and you just let the experience be what it was without negative judgment, or positive for that matter, and just let it be an event. And when you do that, you can actually free yourself. That turns into freedom. It turns into freedom with who you are and what you experienced, instead of making it wrong. If you constantly have a judgment about it, it it enslaves you. It keeps you a prisoner. But when you look at it with just, that's what happened. Yeah, it sucked, but that's what happened, and that was an event I experienced. And you let the anger and the blame go. Now you're turning into free. Now you have freedom. Now you can create something new in your life, versus having the event still have a hold of you and still be creating your future. Now you're not a slave to that anymore. Now you can create something new. So the reason it's End Dieting Hell is because this is not about food. This is about your emotional patterns that were created from a long time ago that still are running your life. You're basically creating your future from your past. And the only way to change that is to fully accept what happened, because you can't change it. Let it be part of your spiritual journey, your life journey, and let it go. Let go of the anger and the frustration and the resentment, and give yourself freedom and peace.
Wow, powerful. So it, I'm just thinking then that someone who you end up working with, food became that thing that they used to fill it up. But if we're talking addiction, then it easily could have been shopping or gambling or sex.
Absolutely. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
So the people that come to you, it sounds like you mentioned men, so you work with both men and women, correct?
I do work with both men and women. I have my program, or my business is called Women Being Fit, because mostly women come to me, but I do, if guys come to me or men come to me, I always support them as well.
Okay. So what's the biggest challenge that your clients have as they're coming to you and trying to work through this journey?
The biggest challenge is that they feel like that's who they are. That initial noticing the emotional feeling. It's like one of the exercises, or one of the practices I take people through is, where's the feeling in your body? And we start to actually do an exploration of where the feeling lives. And we can actually, you can actually start to shift it, and you can actually start to change it. And one of the things that I have clients do is to create what's called heart-based goals, not weight loss goals. Weight loss goals is saying something's wrong with you and you're trying to fix something. So we don't want to do that. There's nothing wrong with you. If you've struggled with your weight most of your life, there's nothing wrong with you. There's just an emotional conditioning in your body, but you're meant to be here at this time in history. It's not a mistake that you're here, that you're living in this body, that you were born in the location you were born into, the folks you were born to. There's a complete there's a reason for that, and it's what I call emotional expansion. So the most challenging thing is that to realize you are not your emotional patterns. You are not someone who struggles with their weight. That's just an emotional addiction. And when you start to explore, where does that live in my body? What is this feeling that I'm addicted to? Where does it live in my body? And you start to feel the frequency of it. Now, emotions have frequencies that they can be measured. The love and peace are the highest vibrational frequency there is. That's why when you're in love, you feel like you're floating on air. It's really a high frequency vibration. And depression is the lowest frequency. And that's why you want to sleep all the time. There's no energy when you're depressed. And then all the other emotions are in between. So the feeling that you have that you're addicted to is a frequency that can be measured. So what does that feel like? And then you can actually start to notice when it shows up. And then you can go, oh, this is just my emotional pattern. This is just my emotional addiction. And you can go, I fully accepted that it's here. Don't make it wrong. This is another thing a lot of clients do. They make themselves wrong. But if you make yourself wrong for having a feeling, you're going to keep that feeling alive, and it's going to keep running you. But if you fully accept it and you go, okay, I'm frustrated. I can't lose weight. I'm frustrated. Okay, this frustration, this is in my heart right now. You take a deep breath into your heart and you say, okay, frustration, it's okay that you're here. You've been here most of my life. I fully accept you. It's all right that you're here. What happens when you do that? You actually create space. You create space from your heart and the feeling. There's actually a space that happens. And when that space happens, you can actually start to shift and start to create something new, which is exactly what end dieting heal is all about, creating something new instead of making yourself wrong. And it's a beautiful thing. It takes practice, but you can totally do it.
So I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. I would imagine that someone shows up to start working with you and they're like, okay, well, how do we start? Because, all right, maybe I'm just guessing, there's not going to be a food log, right? And that's what we're used to. And there's not going to be I'm not counting anything. And it may be just a tough, couple of sessions to get used to the idea that they're actually doing the work that they need to do. Describe it. I mean, how do people start with you?
Well, the very first thing is I don't have them do any type of food change because we want to know, what are the emotional addictions with food? How do you feel about food? When you're eating, what are the feelings you have? If you overeat, what is that, and what is that feeling? So it's an exploration of who you are. It's a complete awakening of how you do your life. And then when we get through that and we know those addictions, and we're starting to practice what I talked about and bringing in freedom and peace in the body, then we go toward food. And the first thing I have people do is a complete detox of liver and colon so that they can start to release, usually it's sugar cravings that they're addicted to. So we do a complete cleanse to support their body and getting on a completely new page. And then I have them just ask one simple question, which is, what can I eat that will leave me feeling good in my body and about myself? And so this is a completely different way of looking at food. It's like, what can I eat? And the great thing about your unconscious is that it wants to answer your questions. So if you ask a question like, why can't I lose weight? It's going to give you the answers. But if you ask a question like, what can I eat right now that's going to leave me feeling good in my body and about myself and even bring me peace? What can I eat that's going to leave me feeling good in my body? And you start to just explore what comes up, and you start to allow that you follow that. And then the other thing that I have people do is what's called a heart-based goal. Like I said earlier, don't make weight loss goals. You make a heart-based goal. And what a heart-based goal is, what is it that you really want to do in like the next 60 to 90 days that's totally feasible by getting in shape and feeling good about yourself that you can't do now. So let's say you're going on a hike with your family, to Yosemite in 60 days, 90 days. And you really want to be one of the first ones up at the top. You want to be up with everybody. You want to be feeling really good. So that's a heart-based goal. And I'm like, okay, well, what's that going to feel like? And so we go through the complete, and actually, let me just share one other thing. Heart-based goals, when you get a heart-based goals, you get your subconscious on board with it. And the way the subconscious mind, the language of your subconscious is not words. So you can say, so let me just share what the subconscious language is. The language are your feelings. So when you do a heart-based goal, you want to get the heart-based goal, you want to let the subconscious mind know what that is. So what would it feel like if you're one of the first ones up at the top when you finish the hike? What would that feel like? What would it look like? What are you seeing? What are people saying to you? What are you saying to yourself? That's all subconscious language. So we're actually getting a heart-based goal, telling your subconscious what it is, and then we create a plan just to make sure that happens. And it's a plan that you like. It's something that you enjoy. It's workouts that you enjoy and you look forward to. And the other thing that I share is that you don't have to work out. You get to work out. And there's actually a completely different feeling around that because there's an emotional addiction around exercise. Like I had a woman, this was so funny. I was at a conference, and this woman was walking to me. I had a booth, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, no, I don't even want to talk about exercise." And I said, "Oh, that's great." And she looked at me and I smiled, and I said, "Did you know that you're emotionally addicted to the feeling of not wanting to talk about exercise, of ignoring exercise?" And she comes over to me and she says, I've had this exercise room in my house and I walk by it every day. I never go in. And I said, yeah. I said, how does that feel? And she says, it's frustrating. And I said, how many times have you shared that story that you have an exercise room that you never use? She says, I share it all the time. I said, yeah. I said, that is an emotional conditioning. That feels normal. Did you know it wouldn't feel normal for you to actually go in and use it? It would actually feel wrong. You would actually feel uncomfortable. So this is the same thing. It's like the first thing you do is get that heart-based goal, find out what that is, whatever it is for you, get your subconscious mind on board with it by using the language of your subconscious mind. And then we create a plan so that you reach that goal. And it's a loving, fun way to do that.
I love that story. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have to know the rest of the story. So what did the woman say? What does she do?
Oh,
Did she follow up with you?
no, she did not. She did not. She smiled. She was like, well, first she said, yeah, you're right. She said, yeah, you're right. That's totally right. I've gone in there and it doesn't feel right. She's like, and it feels more comfortable and more normal for me to just walk by and ignore it. So she didn't, we had a good conversation. She was very, very open and she completely was like on board with what I was saying, but she wasn't ready for change. And that's another thing too. You have to be ready. It's like what happens is you kind of think about it. It's a good idea. Then you start to research and then you get ready. So there's actually a way that people get ready for change. So she was in the kind of possible exploration of it. So, but she really appreciated that because she was like, yeah, you're right. I totally am emotionally conditioned to walking by that room. That feels normal. Yeah.
So funny.
That's hilarious. Yeah. But what was cool is that though was able to share that information and she got it. And it made me feel good because I knew that that's so painful. It's like I know she wants to feel good in her body and I know she wants to be fitter and release some inches so it's like when she said that, I just wanted to give her something that was like, hey, here's an insight why you're so stuck. This is what's going on. So she appreciated that.
Yeah, well, and kudos to you for handling it the way you did with just meeting her where she was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love the way you handled it. Okay, so I think the probably most juicy question I can ask you right now is there something from the inside of End Dieting Hell that you want to share? Is there a question that I don't even know to ask you about the book yet?
Yes. Oh, I love that. Okay, it's this. This is a time of awakening for all of us, every single one of us. And what's going on is that we're all on a spiritual we are the evolution, the next step toward peace. And let me just explain that a little bit more. If you have been struggling with your weight, if your family has struggled, if your parents have struggled, you're actually the evolution of your family. There's actually a reason why you were born to the family that you're born to. And it's to move to the next evolutionary stage. You know, we started with these one-celled amoebas way back. Our evolution hasn't stopped. It's still going. And the next stage of evolution for humanity is peace, love, and forgiveness. And that is why this has been so hard for so long for so many people, because the next stage of our evolution, all of us together, is to move toward peace. And by you, those of you who are listening, by you going on a journey of exploration of who you are and who you have been, and you releasing all the judgment and the pain and the trauma, because it is trauma going through, living in a body that you love, because you've been stuck so long. That's so painful. That's trauma. And when you actually emotionally expand toward love and forgiveness of yourself and others, and you do that for yourself, you help humanity move toward peace. And that's what we are so all ready for. That's what we all want. And so you doing this work of exploration is actually helping the world become a better place, helping the world and the people in it move toward peace. And my God, we all want that.
So good. So good. Michelle, thanks so much. For all of it. I think this is a great contribution in this book. It's so much more than even the cover relays. So I hope you get to broadcast this story all over our listeners. I hope you'll share this podcast all over the place because it's not even 5 people deep. There's somebody that needs to hear it. Probably you can reach your arm out and there's somebody who needs to hear it. So you can get the book, End Dieting Hell, and it's released on the 23rd. So by the time you are hearing this podcast, you can already get it in your hot little hands and start reading it. And I will put the link right there, and it's available on Amazon. Correct, Michelle?
Yep,
Okay.
it launches July 23rd. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yep. And so many good things already going around in the buzz about it. And you can also connect with Michelle at social media. I will put those links in the show notes. So lots of reasons for you to come over. And Michelle, thanks again for your time. I know it's really busy when you've got stuff going on like this.
Deborah, I thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about getting this book launched, and thank you for being part of our team. It's been such a pleasure.
Great. And listeners, I'd love to hear from you. I am sure that this was thought provoking. You've got a comment or a question, so please leave it below the show link at flipping50.com and dieting. And I love hearing from you. I'm sure Michelle would love to hear from you too. If this episode was helpful, please leave us a rating in iTunes and share it with a friend. Surround yourself with a supportive community of women on the same journey. Remember to get the most from this week's episode. Check out today's show notes at flipping50.com/end-dieting, where you'll find the juicy download, the links to the book, and to connect with Michelle. What are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 together.